Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
All right, we will call the meeting to order. Any adjustments to the agenda? Minutes from the prior meeting.
I'll accept them.
I will second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Public comments. Sandy?
No?
Alan?
Yeah, and I'm sorry about the people who had damage in that 5-inch storm, which actually brought us up to 18.5 inches for the month of July. But you know, leaving that last storm is going down the street, and from the 2006 microburst that we had a concrete arch put on the west end of Reed Road, and that saved us through Irene, and it also saved us through this past storm. I was very thankful for that. And then, oh my gosh, I think Matt and Eugene had just finished all the drainage work on the hill going down 35 towards Townsend, and I thought that work got ruined, and it was untouched. It was beautiful. And as soon as you get into Townsend, you had all the gravel wash over and tree limb debris that we used to get. And then, as far as I know, there was no damage in Herring Hill, where we also spent a lot of money. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the mitigation work that we've done so far seems to be paying off, and just wanted to, to encourage the town to continue down the road of the more mitigation work that we need to do. That's it.
All right. Bushy?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that we can't. When I tried to dig in more, sorry, my brain is scattered everywhere. We tried to bring in some folks to tell us about some parts that we lost in our field, and like what money we can get from the state about that, or federally or whatever. And then one of the roadblocks that we ran into is that if we were ever to try to get flood insurance, then we wouldn't be able to, because Athens doesn't have a
town plan.
well, very specifically a hazard mitigation plan.
Well, we do have a hazard mitigation plan, and we've got a grant in to update the hazardous mitigation plan, and I think it expires this year. Do you know any more about it, Tim?
The hazard mitigation plan has expired.
Yes, but this year,
It's past tense,
Yeah.
David.
2021, it expired.
Yeah, okay. And the grant we're getting, which I don't want to, you want to continue? I can say what I would, huh?
Your brain is much more organized than mine on this one, so go for it.
I doubt it, but I feel just as foggy today as you do. I had a conversation with Lissa Savetto, who some of you will remember is a planner with the Wyndham Regional Commission, about this whole matter. Unfortunately, we should be getting a consultant with this work.
Yes.
With the hazard mitigation. She herself is not available. She has 8 other towns that are already lined up ahead of us. So we would have to probably put out an RFP to hire one. She also said we may not be lucky in getting one, that sometimes consultants say, no, I don't want to work in that town, or, like one of our neighbors, I forget the name of the town, has already got 6 consultants that have signed up there, where the town next door can't get one. So that's a potential problem. In any case, if we were to luck out and get a consultant, it would take probably 6 months to a year to get this hazard mitigation plan together, which begs the issue of what Witchy is talking about. He's concerned about, and rightly so, as are some other people that you've talked with, right, Witchy, who are concerned about insurance and not being covered. So I don't know what can be done about it, but I would suggest that we get going on hiring or putting out an RFP and getting a consultant hired as soon as possible to work on this, since it will take a while. She did say that if we had a town plan, and we got a town plan going, that might speed things up.
Yes.
And could we use the expired plan and revamp it?
I
Well,
totally agree.
Yeah, that's what we would most likely do. The hazard mitigation plan that we had, it was worked on by the emergency committee and the select board at the time when we put it in. It was approved by FEMA, but they expire after, I believe it's 5 years. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure of the length of time, but
And it expires in 2021. The state put out grant funding last year for towns to apply for to redo their hazard mitigation plan. And we applied for the grant. We believe we've got the grant, but we haven't got the money from the state yet for that.
should come in September.
Yes, it should, hopefully. And once we do that, we can hire other towns, yes.
So I have a question on that, because if we have a 5-year-old plan, as Denise just suggested, can we basically just put it back in place? Obviously, we have to look it over and see if there are any changes that need to be made. But what is there that we couldn't do, Matt couldn't do? What is the role that a consultant brings to the table that none of us could do?
A consultant would just help us and go with what FEMA is looking for in the plans and could help guide us through that. The last time we did the plan, Alyssa Sabato helped us some with it, but it was really the emergency committee, the select board, the road commissioner at the time. We all worked on it. We had several meetings, if you recall, and wrote the plan, and it sailed through. And actually, some people at Wyndham Regional were surprised, because usually FEMA will send it back to have something done to a plan, and they didn't do it to ours. So I would certainly think that the plan that expired in 2021 would be the model that we would use, and just update and go from there.
And do we have the criteria from FEMA, what needs to be?
Yeah, that's easy to.
So why don't we, I think what Sherry's suggesting is being proactive on this and work on it now, get as much done as possible. If we need to hire a consultant, we will, but it'd be a much quicker job if he or she doesn't have to start from square one, if we've already done work that we can do.
That's true. I have no issue with that, but to have a consultant, in on it, so if we do a lot of work on it and then we hire a consultant and they come back and say, well, no, this isn't what you should do for this, it might not hurt to have one at the beginning of it.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to that. I'm just saying if we can speed up the process at all by doing some work ourselves now, by convening the select board and whoever else you would want to meet, the
Well, it
road
was the
commissioner.
emergency committee that did it last time.
The what?
Sandy, you worked on it quite a bit, don't you recall? The hazard mitigation plan?
Yeah, that and the town plan.
Yes, but it was the mitigation plan that we're getting the grant for, to redo that, so. So does that answer any of the questions?
That answers most questions. One of the questions that I guess I had is that, and I'm a little naive on this, so forgive me, but I don't feel like the flood maps were either in a way that we could see it or updated, because I remember looking at the flood maps and, at least for our property, it not being accurate to what it actually was, and that is something that the water engineer from NRCS also mentioned, and it's one of the barriers to being able to get either insurance or FEMA funding for.
Yeah, you're
Now-
absolutely right, because the flood maps show from the
here.
other side of the road here
Oh.
down to the farm. That's all they show for a floodplain.
Now, we could probably bring that to the attention of the state about that, but it's not the town that does the flood maps, it's the state that that makes the flood maps. Now, if we said, this is wrong, you need to look at this again, they very well might, but it's not the town that goes ahead and says, that lays out the maps, does the mapping. It's the state and the feds, I believe, as well.
And has any of that been updated since 5 years ago when that map happened?
There was some new, and I don't know the term of the maps, but there were some new things out from the state a few years ago. But I think they're the same maps that you're talking about that you can see now, so.
Now technically is
Hold
what...
on,
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I'm looking for insight.
All right, Don.
I thought the flood maps were, their preoccupation was inundation. I didn't think they did anything with fluvial erosion.
That was my question.
That is pretty much true, yes.
Unless that's changed,
I mean,
I don't think you're gonna see inundation all the way back up this far.
well, I mean, if you look, certainly 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago here, you had inundation.
This far back.
All around the house and back of us here.
Yeah.
So, the maps aren't right, but to be able to change them, to get the state, to get the feds to change them, it's not something the town can do. We could say, hey, can you look at this? This is not our experience, but.
So the map doesn't actually come all the way...
The map shows the inundation at this bridge is about the end of where it can be.
Wow.
So for someone like you,
Well, then to sort of follow up with that, then if that's not up to the town, it's up to the state and federal. So it sounds to me then the town needs to put pressure on the department or office that is in charge of that. So
Yeah.
is that something that we can initiate, follow up with?
And I would guess that we're not the only town that's in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they redo the maps, and I don't know how many years difference it takes, but they will redo the maps, and then it will be several years before they come back to redo them again. But certainly we could tell them, hey, this is not our experience, this is what we, you know.
Is VLCT not involved at all? I remember Rod Francis, when he was a VLCT, talking about maps.
I think they know about it, but I don't think they're involved in this. I think it's usually the regional commissions and the state.
Would Andy Tupper have anything to contribute to this with all the mapping work that he
might,
does?
because he does a lot with maps, and he would probably know far better than I would about that, so.
So
But
could the
we
town
could-
contact him and find out?
We could certainly try that. What it might be good to do is to get the emergency committee and the select board to have a meeting with the idea of working, like Tim says, on starting the hazard mitigation plan, re-upping it. And then, but asking Andy to come in, asking maybe Alyssa Sabeto, who we're not gonna ask to write the plan, but about the new flood maps, or the flood maps, and how we would go about that. But Wyndham Regional would probably be one place to go to get direction as to how we would change the maps. They would probably know, or they could know. So,
David,
yes.
what I'd like to really propose to the select board is that some kind of process be initiated tonight, whatever that is, to get these flood maps, leading towards the flood maps being updated so that they conform with our reality.
Well, I don't think that we will work on the flood maps tonight. What we will do is, I think, would be a good thing, is to plan a meeting, try to get the emergency committee to come in, the select board to come in, the road commission to come in, and we start on the hazardous mitigation, and as part of that, then we discuss the maps and see the maps.
That's
and
what
go
I'm
from
talking,
there.
you said in what I was asking for.
Okay.
To start a process, in which I'll make sure that you're aware of that meeting and invited to it for you and whoever else you feel might have some skin in the game here.
Or you could join the emergency committee and help?
Is that
He
really?
is it. That's right, I forgot, which he is in the emergency.
So that's good.
So,
Good
but
move,
you're not quite
Richie.
sure how often flood maps.
I knew you had a
10 years, but I can't say that for sure. I think it's every 10 years they re-up.
Oh, yes.
Next slide.
Because I know when we were looking at joining the National Flood Insurance Program, there was talk that there were new maps coming out and we should wait, and we waited and we
But-
didn't.
We didn't get those, but that was maybe 3 years ago.
Something like that, 3 or 4 years ago, yeah. So,
Well, actually, I'm trying to think if it was on, if it was, that wasn't before Dennis was on when I was there, because I remember it, so it must be after Dennis left.
I believe so. All right. Amy.
That's April.
Oh, April.
No. I do. Denise, at one of the last meetings you mentioned about checking on the ballots as far as like if they could be, in regards to like town meeting, if we could do it, everyone just shows up to vote like we were talking about. You mentioned that there could be an issue with the ballots and the rules about that. Did you get a chance to check into that?
I have not.
Okay.
And actually, it slipped my mind, I should write myself a note, I do apologize for that.
All right. Nothing about public comment? Dennis? No. Anything for public comment?
Yeah, I wanted to share with the select board a conversation and correspondence I had with Stephen Watson, who is the Brattleboro Climate Coordinator. And he told me about this program that the Green Mountain Power is starting, that I'm going to read to you what it's about. I wrote to Green Mountain Power. They're starting what are known as resiliency zones. And it sounded like something, boy, any town that could would get involved. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wait in line. Anyway, this is what the letter says. These resiliency zones will prevent outages from happening by leveraging renewable generation, battery storage, and other innovations, and help communities to bounce back more quickly if outages do occur. In the event of storm damage or a prolonged grid outage, the resiliency zones will enable backup power from the batteries and renewable energy to flow in a network of customers served by the traditional grid. This creates backup power that can work independently from the larger electrical system when needed. So this was a correspondence from Sarah Lindsay Peary, who is with Green Mountain Power, and she concluded her note to me by saying that they would get in touch with Athens, that she thought that we would be a good applicant for this program. So when that happens, I'll make sure that she comes out to the to our select board meeting and makes a full presentation of what they're all about, and give you folks a chance to decide whether this is something you want to go.
Is
Ahead
it part
with-
of like Efficiency Vermont?
Yeah,
Is it included?
it's not
with it?
part of efficient, as far as I know.
Okay,
It may, but I don't know that.
okay.
Anyway, the way Stephen talked about it, it's a great way for towns to be more prepared in the case of outages and what have you. And that Green Mountain Power apparently is willing to, I don't know, what, pay for this or do it or what have you, but obviously they're donating some kind of service and labor to make us more energy efficient in the case of outages.
Or more energy independent.
Or more energy, whatever, yep.
I mean, I do know since a lot of the wires were moved from the woods, that has helped somewhat, not from a major grid malfunction, but as far as trees falling on limbs. I know they haven't completed the whole town, and that process is still ongoing, and I'm not quite sure when that's going to be taken care of. But I did notice a lot less outages due to limbs, since a lot of it's been moved down.
Yeah. That was
Could
it.
I have that letter so I could,
A copy?
Copy of it.
Make a copy?
Let's see, what does it have on it that I don't want exposed? Yes, I can do that. Could you pass this down, please? you make a copy of it and give me back the, thank you.
All right. We'll move on to boards and officials.
I'm not bored anymore.
Not bored.
I'm
You're
not
here,
the chair
so-
anymore.
Anything from budget committee?
No, we'll be meeting, next Tuesday, I believe.
Cemetery, do they have?
Next regular scheduled meeting is Wednesday, September 1st. I canceled the June meeting, so I guess I'll have to make good on the September meeting. It'll be just a review of the budget, not much happening right now.
All right. Right there.
School board. Our next meeting is August 26th at 6 PM, and it's a joint meeting with Grafton, Athens, and Westminster. And the meeting will be held both in person and in a Zoom format. And it's this is a time for the townsfolk to ask questions regarding the voting on August 31st. So we're getting.
And what's the date again?
August 26th, it's a Thursday.
And where will that be? The
It'll be in
in-person?
Westminster, the Westminster School.
Okay.
For those who don't want to drive that far, or can't get that far, it's also open in Zoom format.
And where do they find the link to the
Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting
That would be on the website for the SU.
for the supervisor?
Yeah, supervisory union. And you would go into, on the front page, sort of right in the middle, there's a upcoming meeting, I think it's called. There's a picture of a camera.
Okay.
Can Hannah get that and post it up on our town?
Sure.
Site?
Yes.
Yep, I've got information at that and having it posted up.
And when again, the time was 6:30, you said?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
And then from our last meeting, we talked about the ESSER funds. We've got 3 groups of funds from that. The first one was mitigation. That's funds that have already been used. That was what got us through the COVID, buying the PPEs, the tents, the extra tables, and that type of stuff. The one we're in now is recovery. We use that for the summer school, which was in all within the SU, and from the reports from the different principals, it went extremely well, and the students got a lot out of it, so it was very, very successful. We have a committee of 30 people, and these are teachers, school board members, faculty, administrators, and parents that are on this committee, and they're going through the discussions and fact gathering stage right now. So at this point, we don't know where the rest of those funds will go. It's still in progress. And then the third one will be the infrastructure, and there's some monies that have not yet been allocated, and we haven't done anything with it. And then the first day of school will be September 7th. And at the recent SU meeting and the union board meeting, we voted to make it mandatory for masks at least the first 10 days, and then we'll revisit, see where we're at. We're not mandating teachers to be vaccinated. We're putting that into the union hands to deal with that, because we are not able to mandate that type of a situation.
Are you not able to, or the school board just doesn't want to?
We're not able to, the way I understand it, to mandate that. It's not in our position, so it'll be in contract, whether they have to do it or not.
Lynn, is that masking for everyone in school?
Everyone. in the school
Students,
building.
teachers, staff?
Students, staff, visitors, anybody inside the building.
Mhm.
Masking outside is optional.
So
At this
then I do have a question on that, because I read an article in the Bennington Banner that said only Wyndham Northeast supervisory personnel and students. Technically, the individual schools, they couldn't mandate that had to be brought up by the individual boards and voted on by the individual boards. Is that true?
Right, the SU is recommending that, and the union board, our board, it has put it through, we've accepted that. So in Grafton, the AFGRAF and Westminster schools, they are mandating masks.
Now, at the end of school, were masks mandated?
Yes. that we were still masking at the end of this last school year.
Anything else?
And then just to give a heads up on the climbing structure in the playground at Grafton failed its recent inspection and is not repairable, so that large chunk will be taken out if it isn't already gone out.
It's already gone.
It's already,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I know they were gonna do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's gone.
So, and then we're gonna be talking with the parents and students to get ideas on what they would like to see there. And then we'll start looking into doing the research and drafting a plan, and then we'll do a fundraiser to replace it. So that piece will not be in place at the beginning of school, but there's still the swing set and a number of other pieces there. So it's just the big piece that had the bouncy bridge and the climbing ladders and stuff that's not available. Evidently had some structural issues that were not good.
Is there absentee voting on the 31st?
Yes.
Did they do anything with the ventilation, the air transfer in the schools from any of the funds that they received?
Yes, that was all done.
All
back on-
redone or just?
On the mitigation, yeah, we had that done almost right at the beginning of school last year. It was all upgraded. There is, oh, I forgot to put that in here, there is something going on with, let's see, what was it? Lead in the water, so there are a number of drinking faucets and faucets that cannot be used at the school. And that was not covered, yeah, it came up after our last meeting, so I don't know all the details on that, just some information that came in email format. So they're looking into that and what we need to do. So hopefully we'll be talking about that on the 26th.
Just follow up on that, absentee voting. If someone wanted to absentee vote, how would we go about that?
Talk to Darlene,
Oh, wow.
she'd get your ballot.
I'll talk to you afterwards. Thanks.
So yes, anybody that wants to vote in that,
Come in Monday and we can do that.
Okay.
Darlene's up on Monday, or they can call the office and request it, and one can be mailed out, or it can be done beforehand, so. And you have the ballots already?
I have it ready to print, and then we're gonna print our own, so I will print some up on
And
Monday.
what time will that voting be?
10 to 7.
10 to 7.
Jerry, boards and officials.
So we're still in a holding, waiting pattern with the Paul Brun grant. David, I just want to confirm that when you reviewed the grant agreement, that you saw the information about the covenant, because I know I've mentioned it. I believe that there'll be a form that will come from them, or kind of a format for creating the covenant that we'll need to have signed and sent back, but I haven't seen anything there yet, and it seems like it will follow having a clear plan on what the work will be that's being done.
Yeah, but wouldn't the covenant be put in the land records here?
I would guess it
I
would be,
believe
yeah,
it would have to be.
right.
They would just, we would send them a copy of it, but my thinking was that it would need to be recorded in the land records.
Right, I would guess that it would be as well, but I had just had an email from Lisa Ryan asking if the board was aware of the 15-year covenant, and I said yes, that I knew you had read the grant report, and the grant agreement, and that I had mentioned it in meetings when we were talking about it. And then I asked her if that was something that we would be drawing up or they would be drawing up, and that's kind of where this all came from. So I believe there is some sort of a format for it that she'll share with me, but obviously we're not there yet. But it's coming, so I just want to, again, make sure that I've made you aware of it, and I can say, yes, we are definitely covering that one.
And does that need to be signed like immediately once we get that, or can it wait till our next meeting?
I can't, I mean, it's for 15 years, I can't imagine that it needs to be immediate. You're right. And there doesn't seem to be any rush about getting it in our hands at this point, so I'm guessing that there won't be a big push on that. She was going to be communicating with the National Park Service, I believe, this week. So I may hear something about whether or not there's any additions or corrections or changes that need to be made on the review that we submitted, and or if there's any feedback yet on our draft scope of work, but I'm still waiting on all of that. I believe at not the last meeting, the meeting before, I had made mention of the dead tree that's on the property, and when I came back and asked about it last month, you hadn't yet spoken to Matt about it, so I'm just checking in as to whether or not that's happened.
There's a tree.
The maple tree up in the corner?
Yes.
Yep.
And we were also wondering about the ash tree that's next to it, and I think you were going to see if Bob Anderson would weigh in on that.
I have not talked to Bob about the ash tree there. I mean, I don't think it would be a bad idea to take it out when they're all up there and going at it. Is to take the ash tree out when it is there.
Is the ash tree damaged or dying?
No, it's just that we're gonna lose them all
We very well may lose them all.
in the future.
So instead of having a dead tree that we then also have to work on. Matt's up there and doing it, take them both out, I would think. Is that reasonable with you?
Yeah.
You?
And I would say that maybe we don't need to decide on it now, but the wood from that could either be a fundraiser for the meeting house like we just did, or it could be a donation through Grafton Cares to somebody in need of.
For firewood or for?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, good question. I don't know, but we don't have to decide that right now, right? We can talk about that.
Well, I guess it has to be decided before he cuts them, because that depends on how he cuts them down.
True.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the maple's much good for
I
lumber,
wouldn't think so.
But
But-
the ash might be.
but the ash might be, or, you could try, maybe.
I don't know, I have a hard time cutting down the ash if there's nothing wrong with it at this time. I understand you want to be proactive and cut it before it does die, but I
You
know.
know, I have not heard recently if there are,
The bugs are coming our way.
but I suspect that they probably are. Yeah, so maybe we'll leave it up to Matt, whether he thinks it needs to go now or later, when he's cutting it.
I'd also maybe ask Jay Majowski to
That would be
weigh
an
in
excellent idea.
on it, see what his
Okay.
thoughts are.
Was it state forest or?
Mhm.
And I know Bob's our tree warden, why don't we talk to him about that? Just because I understand where you're coming from, where you want to be proactive, but
All right, anything else?
Question, is the ash, if it came down, it would come down on the meeting house?
I haven't actually looked at it to try and make that determination, and I'd let somebody else who knows better than me make that call.
Don't worry about it.
Because with this crazy weather we've been having, there've been trees coming down that look perfectly healthy.
So the other thing I wanted to just come back to is that, I think it was last month that, we made mention that the property on the corner had, gone on the market. And at this point, it's under contract. I'm not sure if it's actually, closed yet or not, but my understanding is it's closing at some point this month. You're looking at me with a question mark. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Brian Lavoie's.
Brian
property is
Lavoie's
being
property.
sold.
Yeah, no, but I don't think we brought that up at this meeting, did we?
Yeah, I thought we did.
I don't recall that.
Okay, well, anyway, that's the situation. It is, It is under contract. So that means that the clearing of the corner that we've talked about numerous times here hasn't happened yet and can't happen at this point, unless we have a conversation with the new owners and they're interested and willing to go ahead with that. Brian has indicated to me that he will share that that was a plan that was being discussed with the meeting house and the town, and encourage them to consider going ahead with it, but obviously it'll be the decision of the new owners. The concern I have about this, though, is that in part of that work that was to be done, it was also going to include cleaning up the edge of that parking area that's there. And that was, as I understand it, a misunderstanding that I believe Matt thought that that whole corner was going to become parking area, which I don't know where that impression came from, but there is quite a pile of brush, and the stone wall that ran along the edge of the Lavoie property was disrupted quite a bit. And when all the material was there for the drainage work, when that was finished, the cleanup from there really wasn't, I would say it wasn't done completely, because there was this expectation that there was going to be some more work around parking there. So what I guess I'm looking for is perhaps a plan to approach the new owners and offer to do that cleanup that should have been done in a different way than it was. It should have been left in a better state than it was when that drainage work was finished, as sort of a good welcoming into the town.
I don't have a problem with that, do you, Matt? Do you?
No, that there was something that was expected to be done in the first place. I can't see them saying, no, don't clean it up, leave it that way.
Janet, do you have any issues with it?
No, it should have been done 5 or 6 years ago when the parking lot was done.
Well, actually, it wasn't when the parking lot was done, it was when the
When the drainage
drainage
was
work was done. The parking area was there at that time, but when the drainage was finished, it was not, I mean, some of it may have been from the parking area as well, but also the drainage. So I will find out when the new folks have arrived. I'll be in touch with Brian and get a sense of that, and then maybe go up and introduce myself to them and let them know that the town is willing to take that on and clean that up for them, and that might be a good opening for a conversation too about the corner and what the plans were, and just see if they want to talk about that.
Do you know if they're going to be living here, or is this?
My understanding is that they will be living here, yeah.
Wouldn't it be better for the road commissioner or the road foreman to talk to them about that?
Yeah, you could talk to them with you. Is that reasonable? Matt comes up and the two of you go?
I would like to make contact with them initially, and then if they're open to it, have another visit with Matt.
Okay. All right.
And
Anything
the
else?
last thing I just want to say is that we did have a, I thought, relatively successful event last Sunday. We had a concert and ice cream social. It kind of is disappointing to me that there are more people that come from elsewhere and not from Athens. So I would be very interested in hearing input from any of you as to what might make a difference. Might it be a different time of day? Might it be a different day? Is there an event that might warrant more folks from town coming out and supporting the efforts that we're doing up there? Because it was kind of discouraging to not see too many people from town.
I know in my case, I wanted to come, but my schedule was so booked that day. I
Right,
wasn't
I
able
mean,
to
I
make it.
know that happens with a lot of folks, but
Just wasn't here in town during that time.
Mhm.
It's hard, I work during the weekend on weekends, it's go take care of my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think that because I saw this happen a lot where like because we were so secluded during COVID that all of a sudden summer came and we could hang with other people, that everyone just booked their entire summer.
Oh, right.
Right. In May. So I think maybe part of that. At least that was the case for me.
I hear, I get it. But it's not the first time that we've seen this at events that we've held. So I'm just putting it out there to say, give us some feedback if there are ideas that you have as to things that would encourage more people to come.
Oh, when we had,
Contribute and let us know.
Mills?
Pardon me?
When we had the Singer Mills, we had a good turnout then,
I'd say we had about the same amount of people.
really.
Yeah.
That's chore time for me.
Pardon me?
I said, that's chore time for me. Can't upset my cows.
All right, anything else, Sharon? All right. So we will move on to the Former School Advisory Committee.
Emergency committee.
Nope, Emergency Committee, Ken, go right ahead.
We exist though. In fact, I'd like to really make special mention because there are all the members but one are here. Don, Witchy, Tina, Lynn, Sherry. And it's been a very active committee. It's been a joy to work with. And most recently that was demonstrated with the concern around heat and the heat waves that we were very aware of out west and what we could do for our neighbors should we be afflicted with such in terms of providing care. And that generated a lot of conversation via email. We had a meeting at the school itself, which was looked at us in terms of using that as a temporary shelter, and decided not to because it's not accessible for physically challenged people. At least at this point, that's something we hope that will change in the very near future. And so it was agreed that we would use the church next door, much as we use that for other emergency type of weather emergencies where we have to provide shelter for people. So we agreed on some basic standards of how it would be used. For example, that people would go home at night, that they'd be responsible for their own food, that we would provide water. We'd have a person present to monitor the use of the building and what have you. And we would do what we do when when the church is used for other types of emergency, is do a walkthrough with pastor to make sure we agree on how the building is. I've talked to pastor, he's all for it, he's fine with it.
And they have AC in there now?
Yeah. Well, they don't have AC, no, they don't have AC.
Just fans.
But it's the best of our choices at this point.
Well, the basement is very cool.
The basement of the school is a good place, but as I said a moment ago.
No, I meant the church.
Pardon me?
The church basement is.
Oh, the church basement, Okay.
And you couldn't get handicap accessibility? They can't get in through?
The door is blocked by
Shrubbery.
huge Cynthia bushes that need to be dug out so that that road is open again to be able to get to the back door.
That's
Yeah,
one of the
that's-
things we hope
The school,
that
yes.
would address sooner than later.
And if it's for heat purposes, to cool people down, the basement is much cooler than.
Oh, it's the
Yeah.
place we want to go to.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that's where we want to end up. But we just felt like with elderly people, with physically challenged people, that we, it would be better to do what we've decided. So anyway, the long and the short of it is I would assume most of you know, through the hard work of Lynn, we got together a statement that we sent out to everyone in town, stating that if people should be in trouble with heat, we had the list of all the members of the committee and our phone numbers, and advised them to give us a call to use the place. So that's our sort of our interim plan until we develop a more, till we can use the school. So I just wanted to, and to thank everyone on the committee again, this is a great group of people. I really enjoy working with people like Don and Witchy and Tina and Lynn and Sherry.
Well, hopefully, we're at the end of heat waves here for this year.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But you never
I hope
know.
for a lot of things. I hope for a nice gift from Santa Claus this year, but I just learned recently that Santa doesn't even exist, so.
Oh,
But I mean, David, sometimes in September, you do get a heat wave not as intense as, July and August.
The thing about what is happening is that you can't predict it.
This is true.
It happens.
All right,
We've also had a like super unusually really wet July and August. We haven't had sunlight really. So.
Hurricanes are popping up. That's where we may go next.
all right. So the next thing on the agenda is the former school advisory committee, which is a, probably a bad name for what we want to do here, and that'd be your first thing to rename yourselves once it's.
That was your job, David.
Well, that's what I came
Come
up
on,
with
you-
quickly there, so that will be the first thing on the agenda, rename this committee here, but, we've got 5 names here: Tim Stevenson, Tina White, Sandy Campancelli, Dennis Moranti, and Kate Bova, that will serve on that. Do we have anybody else that wants to or will?
Yep, and I guess you haven't received their names.
I don't, these are the names I've got.
Okay, let me see if I can find, oh, yes. Kelsey and Matt, friends of Witchy's, Witchy put us in touch with them. They didn't come tonight because they have real concerns around COVID and being in a closed place like this.
Okay.
But they are a young couple who have recently moved to Athens.
Yeah, they live right behind there. That field is there.
Okay.
What's
And
their last name?
Matt Shea and Kelsey Birch. Don't ask me to spell that, please.
Kelsey Birch.
Yeah,
Burch.
there you go. Thank you.
Okay,
So that makes 7.
all right. And I was thinking it wouldn't hurt to have somebody from the select board on there too, just so everybody keeps in knowledge of it there. Either of you want to serve? I mean, I can do it.
I could try it, schedule it, like I said.
Probably should only be one of us, because if we
I know
meet,
it is
it
a
can.
quorum.
Yeah, there would be a quorum, and we shouldn't do that, so I can do it, or you can do it, whichever.
If you are available,
Do we have any ideas when we're thinking of meeting?
Well, I thought your idea was to meet sooner than later, and I totally agree with that, given the priorities of this committee that were pretty much decided on at the last meeting. So I would say, hopefully, we would have a meeting in early September, which would be a couple of weeks away.
Yeah. But, I mean, are you thinking days, nights, weekends, when are you thinking?
Well, what I was gonna do is send an email out to all the members and try to get a sense of when they are available to do a meeting. I find that works better than going ahead and arbitrarily deciding one that fits my schedule.
Okay.
Because invariably people say, no, I can't do that day or that time. So I will do that first, and I'll do that in the next day or two.
Okay.
And include you as a member. And once I get that information, then I'll call a meeting. And
All
we'll go
right,
from there.
why don't we do this? I will try and serve, and if I can't do it, you can be the alternate.
that's fine.
All right. We will go with that. So I will make a motion that we appoint these people to the ad hoc committee. Reference the school building.
The what committee did you call it?
Former school advisory committee is
School
what,
Action
Okay.
Committee.
and then here it's the school building committee, so.
Oh, that's fine.
Which,
Well, that's what I came up with, the
What'd you
school
say,
building
Sandy?
committee.
School rehab committee, because we are rehabbing the school for
Yeah.
use for our town.
We could also call it the school/town office building, because it's already been decided how
So,
some of the place is gonna be used.
again, it'll be the committee's first job to name themselves. We won't throw it onto them. So I'll make a motion that these 9 people.
School revitalization committee.
Yeah, well, that's what the original name.
That's good.
Well, school building revitalization.
We'll leave that to the.
To the committee.
A spirited debate over this name.
So that would be 9 people, 8 people, and 1 alternate. And I'll make a motion to nominate those people for that.
Are you, I mean, the select board always is on any town committee.
Not necessarily.
I mean, they don't have to participate, but they are, it is.
They're not necessarily ex officio of everything.
See, well, that's what I wanted to clarify as to whether the select board would have a vote, whoever shows up on a given issue.
On this, I would think yes.
Okay.
On, say, the planning committee, you don't have a vote, but you
Okay.
are an ex officio member.
Okay.
But no, it's not automatic that the select board is on every committee, no.
No, okay.
David?
Yeah,
I would be willing, if welcome, to work with this committee as, in a similar fashion to what I'm doing with the Meeting House Committee right now, not be a voting member or a presenter, but, help with the technical aspects of,
We already had you down for that, Don.
well.
And I can't tell you how valuable it is.
I would think that
And
would
I
be.
did not volunteer you.
You're automatically involved in this.
Just a heads up, the building was built in 1981, the Americans with Disabilities Act, I think, was 1990, and as long as that was property of the school, operating as a school, everything was grandfathered, but there may be, I can tell you there are gonna be some nuances that are gonna come up, and I can't report on them tonight. I have a couple of calls in with, Steve Dumont from the Labor Administrator. So hopefully I'll have some information.
So Don, we'll make sure that you're included in the meeting, this first meeting that we're gonna have. In fact, in
My boss.
any meeting. But especially this first one, because this first one is gonna be talking about the building and what needs to be done. I mean, we will make a name, but that may take a couple hours, so.
Hopefully, it does not take that long, so,
You never know.
Do we have a second on the motion?
yeah, do we have a
I'll
second?
second that motion.
Thank you, Don.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move on from there. We did have, and I don't have the information with me, but I was, we had a dog bite in town a week or so ago.
Do we need to quarantine it?
The dog has been quarantined, and I believe we had emails, and I don't have those, but, and I've tried to get with Steve. Do we have copies of them here?
Copies of,
The emails and things from the person that was bitten and another witness?
did have some, but I'm not sure if I can
Was
find
it
it.
quarantined at?
The only email I had was whether the dog had the rabies shot or not.
All right, so I believe the animal did have the rabies shot. It was quarantined.
With the homeowner or at
With the
Wyndham?
no, at the homeowner.
That's what I said, the homeowner, okay.
And the health officer, he's taking care of that. The person that was bitten, my understanding is it wants a hearing, reference the dog bite as a vicious dog. And we were obliged to have a hearing on that if they request that. I have a little information here on it, a lot of information, but you can look at that. But it looks like we have 7 days, and if we count today as the first day of notice of it, we have another week to have a hearing on this where we notify the victim that can come to testify or do it in writing, and the owner of the dog can come before us on that as to
So it's not 7 days from the bite, it's 7 days from,
Well, when we're noticed of it,
Right.
and as this is the first meeting that we've had, or first understanding of it, this we'll start counting it as tonight as the date of,
Now, we do have an ordinance on leash law, right?
we do have the leash law. Well, it's not a leash law, it's
Well,
a dog ordinance, but
ordinance.
it's not that dogs all have to be on leashes, but.
Can you just clarify why the dog bite has become a town issue and not the dog owner's issue to take
Well,
care of this?
Well, if somebody, if a dog bites somebody, a dog has to be quarantined and the health officer has to ensure that the dog is quarantined. Examine the dog after a 10-day period to see that the dog doesn't have rabies, to check to see if the dog is registered and had its rabies shot at the beginning. Dog can be quarantined at the discretion of the health officer with the person that owns the dog, or they can take it to a facility to have it quarantined. I'm not sure that the Humane Society will quarantine them for us. I believe it has to be a veterinary.
I thought that's why we pay them.
That's for taking in stray dogs. Don't believe that they will take a quarantine.
I thought that we paid for any time we needed to put a dog in, such as quarantining or stray dog. I didn't realize it was only for stray
I
dogs.
think it's only for strays.
Yes, when I was a health officer, it has to be quarantined at a veterinary clinic.
Yes.
Or the home.
But why
Or
is
the-
it,
or the-
why is it up to the select board to hold a hearing?
It's-
That's what I'm confused about, is why is this not just between the person that got bit and the dog owner? I don't understand how the town got involved.
If somebody who is bitten requests a hearing, the town has to have a hearing. It's by state statute on a vicious dog, and then the board has to sit in a quasi-judicial format and hear the evidence, and then proceed from there as to what happens. If they believe there's nothing happened, you could say, okay, that no restrictions on the dog. If something terrible happened, there are a couple of things that the town can do. It can be ordered.
So was this on the homeowner's property, or was the dog not on the homeowner's property when this happened?
He's on the property.
Well, I believe it was on the road.
Yeah.
Not on the homeowner's property, on the road.
I believe it was on the road, is my understanding.
Because I think if it was on the homeowner's property,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's a different situation if it's on the homeowner's
Yeah.
property
Yes.
as opposed to being on the public,
Yeah.
on public property.
But we don't want to get into a lot of the issues of it right now, because we should save that for the hearing. And this is a few pages out of VLCT's manual on the hearing. This is what
spot takes the witness chair.
well, spot takes it. Tim,
Does the select board make some kind of decision at this hearing?
yes.
Okay. As to what to do with the dog, is that
Yes,
basically
my
the decision you make?
I thought that, sorry, isn't
What?
Vermont a one bite state though? I guess I'm just not understanding like,
Well, what's a one bite state? Explain that to us.
sure, oh, I'm being big update. In some states like Vermont, we're in the minority of states, a dog gets to bite someone once and then the owners essentially put on notice that they potentially have a dog that could be dangerous. And then liability, as far as negligent goes, attaches if the dog bites someone a second time. So in a lot of states you get like your dog bites someone, the dog can be put down, but in Vermont, you get like a one bite first.
I don't think that's the case. I
No.
think anybody can,
I was a town health officer for quite a while, and that's nothing
So
that
does
I've read. And today because I knew this was on,
Yeah.
I was looking through Title 20, and I didn't see anywhere in there.
I was looking as far as like individual like stuff goes. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to understand how what the town's role in
there may
this
be
is.
some case law out there that if a dog bites one person one time, then it's the
Yeah.
first time, that then they can't be held liable. I don't know about that. But I do know that if a dog is vicious or or alleged to be vicious, the person that's bitten can request a hearing, and that's my understanding.
To determine if the dog is vicious and then where it goes from there.
Determine if the dog is vicious and what the select board can order for the dog. I'm not sure that we have ever had a hearing like this, and I know that we may have, but it's a very rare thing for a select board to have a hearing
Yeah,
like
was this where the person had to go to the hospital for treatment or
I believe
anything?
I don't know for sure, but I believe that they did receive a bite. I think they did go get medical attention for it. But I don't know all the facts of it, as I said.
When will the 10-day quarantine be up for the dog?
I believe it should be up sometime soon, I believe. I don't know the exact date.
It says, will this hearing be public? Cause,
Yes. The decision may not be, I believe that we adjourn and then issue a decision, but it can be a hearing that is public. It's a public matter. So, do we have a date that would work for you two?
I'm flexible.
It would be in the evening or during the day?
It could be whenever we deem it needs to be. I mean, in the evening would probably be better for me.
And we have to have it within 10 days?
7 days
7 days.
is what I read. If we're counting tonight, when we first are here all together and have the information here, and that's what I'm doing, is counting today as being the first day, so it will have to be between now and next Friday.
Okay.
Any date work or not work for you, or?
Well, probably not Tuesday night, it's my anniversary, my husband would probably kill me if I came to a meeting on my anniversary.
What better to do? Bring him here, say this is the date.
Yeah,
Don't.
just not Tuesday night.
All right, what night? Good for you.
Matter.
We have to make notice to both parties.
And what happens if they can't make it?
Then if I believe in reading some of
Well,
that.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, in reading some of that, I didn't read all 20-some pages of it there, but I
Do
believe.
you need this? Can I take it and read it and?
Give me a copy of it.
Okay.
We'll make make 3 copies of it.
Okay.
So Wednesday,
Works for me.
Wednesday,
Okay,
6 o'clock,
okay.
6 o'clock.
What's that date?
25th.
25th. All right, so the 25th, we will do that.
And do I have to be here to take notes?
Yes.
Okay.
And can you notify both the bite victim and the owner of the dog that there will be a hearing on
Do
this?
they have counsel or they just?
They could bring counsel if they want. All right, they can do whatever they want. So,
Does Steve have contact with them so I know?
Steve, I believe, I tried to get Steve to come tonight, but I haven't been able to get hold of him.
And does he have to come to the hearing?
I would like him to be here. I don't think
Yeah.
he has to, but I would like him to be here. So, I will talk to Steve about it, but if you can get the information and then notify him in writing, that there will be a hearing on the matter on Wednesday, and I will make a warning for that too.
And if we deem this dog vicious, what happens? It gets put down?
There are several ways that we
It's in
can
here?
do. We can
Okay.
have it restrained, we can do
you-
different things, I believe.
I'll make copies of this so I can take it and read it.
It is online
It
as
is?
well. If you don't want. Warrants and mail. Well, actually, we will skip over the warrants and mail. We'll go to roads. Matt, you have?
Yes, I would like to thank all the contractors that helped us out during the flood. Basin Brothers, Clark's, and Ivor. and there's many more that offered to help, and I appreciate everybody's offer and help. And with all the work that we've done in the last 15 years to the infrastructure, we handled it a lot better than most towns. And yeah, I think we were the last one the state came and actually saw it, because we had the least amount of damage out of the infected towns. So we should have everything. We got a little spot left up on Mill Hill to do, and a couple down in Brookline, and everything else is all fixed and put back together.
So the current bill that we have, the warrant, that's for everything that's done so far, but we'll have more possibly.
Yeah, just a
added
couple
on.
more.
What have we heard from the state on that?
From what I gather, FEMA is supposed to step in, and we are over our, we have a natural disaster and we have over $10,000 worth of damage. They automatically come in, the state steps in, so we're covered one way or the other. And with all the damage in the surrounding towns around us, that they figure FEMA's coming and get the paperwork all ready. And
I've heard that a disaster has been declared by the federal government, so
yes,
that the reimbursements hopefully will be just a matter of paperwork. As of right now, it's just below 40,000, correct?
Yep.
39,000. Do you have any idea how much the next bills are?
Shouldn't be too much more.
Under 10, you think?
Should be right around 10.
Right around 10.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about the flood?
Over the edge mowing?
Well, that was coming, what, right around the flood time, right?
The week after the flood hit.
Yeah, so we did it for September.
Okay.
Yep,
Because
September
I've had
6th.
2 townspeople call me saying, are we gonna do that? And I said, as far as I know, it's on the books, and
Yes, but they changed it to.
that's fine.
I just have a question. Since this is gonna be the first time, is this the first dog bite hearing that you think the town has had? I'm just curious.
I can't remember one.
If so, is this something that the town should consult? I know there's an elected position like the town grand juror or someone. Since it's the first, I think it would make sense that the board would at least consult the elected official whose job it is to advise the town.
It may be the town agent
Yeah,
would be the one that would, instead of the town grand juror.
either way, it's still the same individual.
But
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we want to expend a lot of money on attorneys for this hearing if.
Right, that's why I meant like the elected official whose job it is, my understanding would be voted to advise the town.
VLCT has, I think it's a 78-page booklet on this, so they have pretty much laid out what we can do, how we do it. Even they say the statute's kind of vague, and
Again, I'm not suggesting that the town spend money or resources, it's just there's an official in town who is like the elected legal person, so it would seem that this would be a great time to use them since they don't do that much. So that's all. I was just wondering if the board was just gonna consult, that elected official.
I mean, we can. I think VLCT probably has more information on it, that they've had to deal with it in different towns and stuff. We can, if we need it, we can call them in.
Do you want a copy of this to read?
Yeah. Please.
All right. Roads, back to roads. Anything else?
Sand bids?
I got the sand bids right here, but nothing else on the flood and?
No, everything's still moving right along. We're still waiting to see what's gonna happen with a few little projects, but
And how's all the equipment holding up? And
good. I gotta take the big truck down and have the steering box checked in it. And it's got a wicked shake in it, but that should be covered under the warranty. And
Hopefully.
better.
other than that, everything's going good.
All right. So
Steering.
we
Steering
have
box.
3 bids here. You don't have any others, Darlene?
Nope.
one of the last meetings, it was discussed about having the backhoe appraised or having Matt check in. Did you have a chance to do that?
Yep.
About how much it was actually worth?
Yes. Do you have that paperwork?
Yep.
All right, we'll hold that off on that for just a second here. Eastman Sand and Gravel submits a bid of $15.50 a yard, per yard for winter sand delivered to the Athens Town Garage. And Basin Brothers Trucking. $17.85 a cubic yard.
Is that delivered?
What?
Delivered?
I believe it's delivered. It does not say delivered, but I think it
You
is.
think it is?
That's what the
The
ad
RFP
was.
said.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is JP Trucking. And 1,000 yards delivered at $21 per yard.
Wow. What Eastman was, how much, 15?
$15.50. Basin, well, you have that.
Basin's is 1785.
$17.85. And JP is 21. Eastman doesn't say how many yards in here, but the RP stay at 1,000, right?
Yep.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we go with, is that Eastman, that was 15, something?
$15.50 per yard.
I think we should discuss it.
Okay,
All right.
go ahead.
Basins, we have some sand from previous years that is not up to snuff to use on the roads. So getting either JP's or Basins, which comes from the same pit, we may be able to mix the lesser quality sand with their sand to make it go.
And what's wrong with the sand, why can't it be used on the road?
I'd like to see what, P&L is gonna ship us for sand before we say we'll take it. Because I went over to their pit the other day to see, their sand pile, and they didn't even have any processed yet. So I don't know what part of their pit they're getting it out of. I don't know if it's gonna be good sand or bad sand. I don't know anything about it.
And if it's bad sand, it's usually too fine, is that right?
Yeah, it's too fine. It don't work for the ice storms that we've been having very well. You have to put a lot of it on the roads. And then the worst part is in the spring, it's trying to mix it in. You get all the slime on the roads, and when you use better sand, like we got from P&L a couple of years ago, the mud season was a lot quicker. It blended in nice, and we didn't have half the problems.
So do you want to go over there and talk to them before we accept their bid?
I'd appreciate it.
Matt, I'm surprised that visiting every one of these is not an automatic part of looking at the bids, because obviously by your own testimony, the quality of the sand is what counts. And if you get a real cheapo that doesn't do the job, then...
I've been over and I went to Josh's pit before the flood because he talked to me about wanting to put a bid in. And Basin's getting his sand from Josh. So either bid is the same sand pile.
Mhm.
And his sand looks really nice. I do not know what P&L has for sand because they didn't have any made up in their pit. But they've been a little busy with the flood work too, so.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in the future, maybe that's almost an automatic part of accepting bids, is that
It should be.
that you know what the sand is that you're you would be buying,
Yeah.
you know.
And which sand was it, the sand that was too fine from Eastman's?
Yeah, the stuff that we got last year was a little fine.
Well, why don't we have you go and look at what they're gonna deliver, and we can, does it say when they will have it in here by?
Eastman just says for the 2021-22 winter season, but it doesn't say.
I think it's by October 31st. I think that's what the paper said.
What the paperwork said, so if we vote on this at the next meeting, after you viewed this sand,
JP does say by October 30th, and
Basins I don't think have it.
Basins does not say.
Now, is it a processing thing that happens that makes it so fine?
No, it's the material
Where-
that's in, it's the
Where
dirt
it
that's
is in the pit? Okay.
Yeah.
But we've got good material from them before,
Yes, we have. Very good.
so,
It all depends on where they're digging in their pit.
all right, so why don't we do that? Why don't we, have you go and view what they have, and you can report back to us the next meeting?
I mean, let them know your concerns and the problem that you had,
Yeah.
that you have sand that's unusable because it's too fine.
Yeah, because our roads are getting to the point where they're really starting to come along with the gravel that we're putting on. And I just hate to have good gravel and put not up to quite par sand on it and dilute the gravel down to need to put more gravel.
So besides, the sand is fine, but is it slippery when it gets
No,
wet? It's
no,
just fine.
it's just fine.
And does it not go through the hopper as well? or-
It goes through the hopper and everything, but there's not as much stone in it.
So it
And the
doesn't
stone's
grip.
where you get your true grit on the dirt road, especially during an ice storm.
All right, so we'll do that. We will put this off till the next meeting to award a bid. I'll get those to Darlene.
Is there a date on those saying how good that bid is good for? I didn't notice, but I know sometimes they say this is only good for X number of days, and I think one of them says about a week.
Can you make a decision on it when you come together for the hearing for the dog bite
Well,
instead, and can
If we
that?
call, we would have to call another meeting, so we could do that, but the dog bite is not technically a select board meeting. Well, it is, but it's, we would have to go we would have to go to one hearing and then adjourn, and easy enough to do, so we could do that.
It doesn't say?
No, I don't see anything.
I
Okay.
didn't see any, I think because they're saying it's till October, the end of October, so. All right, nothing else for roads? Wants and maintenance.
I'm working on warrants, that's,
These two.
those two are signed. These ones I haven't even looked at yet. But I can go make copies.
We'll give it to Sandy, she'll show us.
Can you just do them back to back so we don't waste so much paper? Do you know how?
I think she knows how.
I don't know how.
Where'd Don run off to? That's the other question.
Yeah, go home. You gotta go to work in the morning.
Don't we all? I stamped some.
Do one side for your party.
What I don't understand is
Yeah, I
why
guess
you
I
go
don't-
through at the end, that doesn't, I mean, it's a private, it's almost like a private business.
You're trying to by the next
No, no,
pickup.
no,
Shouldn't
no, no,
you do that at the end of the agenda? So that basically the meeting ends.
About all we got left.
Oh, okay, but I'm just, in the past, it seems to me that warrants come and then there's more
We have an
business.
executive session afterwards here, but,
If you're not like snapping, you'll be all right.
One side is
but other than that,
I don't know.
Night, Witchy.
Yep, nobody took it.
and you're leaving.
It would be great if we could just get it off of the post, you can probably just post again for something else, right? And then we could just get the signing of it in the meeting
So if you could swing by, 'cause
Yeah.
I don't think I've been over.
You mentioned Kate Goldberg's name as far as one of the new, yeah. We've got a good committee there, some good people.
You figure it out.
Oh, working on it. You told that I have to get her cancer on my back. Thinking that it sounds like a little irritated or something. So this one, if I put it in,
So David, put the rest in.
I know everybody's princess, but when you, David, excuse me, I have a question. When you put out the sand bits, did you put in spec within the sand?
Yeah.
When you put out the sand bits, did you put in specs for what each person had to bid on and what they had to
Yes.
give you?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
I am really weird about my hair. So, it's super gentle. It's funny, it's one of the two levels. Like, it's so I'll take some pictures.
I know back in
So,
Justin, she's
last year,
insurance on the town
started being
it was
really
the
tired
25,000, but we
and just like.
So you want
content.
You don't have to say
everything.
Well, yeah.
Do we ever raise that? We put it better down to 25, but we didn't use it.
She just laid down, so she was really scared.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And then they diagnosed her with lepto, which is, this is grandma came out and said.
Yeah, I saw that.
This mine?
That's yours.
Original?
Yep.
Should be like ultrasound. And then kind of. So it's a.
Oh, you got some?
Have you had any feedback on the new trash service? It seems to be going
It's
well.
really common in the city.
I haven't heard any complaints.
So like if they go potty in water, puddle or the mouse runs across the grass, and then it's super contagious.
David, are you having an executive session for personnel tonight? or-
Yeah.
So the bacteria.
I like these.
I like the skills and the time is so deadly.
You like the electric bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you like it?
They're really low.
Oh, yeah.
51, 37, and 39. It's gonna be like
That's for the office, huh?
one for the office, one for the school, and one is for the town garage.
Can I ask if Sandy can stay in with us?
Came back positive. No doctors have ever seen lepto. No doctors in the ER have ever seen her lepto.
Yeah.
And same with the vet over in, right. And so she's on medication to protect her liver and a really strong antibiotic. But we just did that yesterday, and one of the liver numbers.
Yeah, so I gotta get a hold of Dennis and get them boards and the cat done.
I'm still really attached to this dog, and she does not feel
I think what I'm gonna do is just bring it up to your house and get it
I'm
off.
feeling frustrated, because like I feel like I'm not doing anything, but
Get your whole thing.
the liver is. And getting people to call me back is like, oh,
I got
and it's
stain.
very frustrating.
Sandy, do you know how much
Because like other people.
ground maintenance is done up at the cemetery?
You give her a different
How much
kind of
what?
antibiotic.
Monthly ground
Like,
maintenance
you
work?
give, like,
I know you're not the cemetery
antibiotic,
commission,
you know,
but
something
Yeah.
like that. It's like.
is there a lot that goes on up there?
Covered with anything. It's not really monthly with that.
Yeah.
Why does it say monthly ground maintenance work for all 10 days?
No way.
For $625?
Oh, you need to get a fresh
He
air.
doesn't do it like that.
I know, and it's usually not this much money, it's not, it's barely $25, it's usually, unless you have.
No, sorry, down left. I don't know why.
$625 equals a quarter.
Yeah, it's cool.
Aha,
Yes, he does,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that
Got it.
dog. And like earlier this summer, she got into pills. So she's just in the hospital a lot.
Oh, well, I shouldn't be dancing around with the camera still on, huh? Okay.
Your copy
Yeah.
My copy here, thank you.
And we got one
I
for
feel so bad asking
One
for
for
dogs
Denise,
and
one
everything's
for
going on,
Janet.
you know, with Afghanistan and everything. But it's important to me, and I remind myself that God is the God of the individual.
Thank you. Except for the dog. Yes, okay.
And so I just, oh gosh, I just, it's yeah, it's just really hard.
I don't know, maybe.
No, David's.
And like, she was like, she was all.
Oh, you just.
Well, I had one for you. Just keep for the-
Yeah.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah,
what are these for?
what?
From Jordan Equipment for all the car ride
So,
for the grader?
Yep.
And how often does that happen?
Well, we've been going through about one every 3 years.
That's not too bad. Oh, it says right there grader. Yeah, I was holding it like this.
There should be one in there from Jordan for a backhoe too.
Are they together?
I don't know.
No.
No?
Okay.
Or was that last month?
I think it was last month.
Alright.
Okay, so.
They're for tea?
Yep. Backhoe deep, back bucket.
Yeah. I know, but it's just like, no, I don't get along with that way.
No.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can throw away the rest of, the emails from Brenda from last.
Oh, there is one for the backhoe. It's just $51. It doesn't say what it is. Parts and service grounds, tax backhoe. I don't know.
It's been a while since I looked at it.
I wonder if we paid a bill and this is, because it says it's a balance, maybe we paid something, we didn't pay the whole thing last month?
Like,
I don't know.
you know, like they're not human, and now I'm like, I love science, so I read all this stuff about it. Connections to people, and it's just their sense in there.
Is there a sweeper that the town hires to sweep the, you know, like Brattleboro has a sweeper that just, every season, the luxury that Brattleboro can afford, yeah. The reason I ask the question, we have all those stones in the driveway, no big deal. Like, it in peace. That's it, right?
That's it, yeah.
Good, thank you. See you, folks.
Wednesday night out.
1:30, accident road.
that's it. What?
If it's not gonna be there.
Yeah. Wednesday.
Well, the person asking for it can ask for it not to happen, so. The person that was bitten can ask for it not to happen.
What's this for?
Probably found it somewhere.
Yeah, because they have.
Sure, it was.
There's a sunset that we don't.
I know, and I just wish you could talk to me.
I know.
Okay.
I keep telling Sadie, talk to me, I don't understand why.
I know, and I just love this dog so much, and like the thought of like, you know, it's like you can't just give another one, you know, it kind of feels like a kid, and I never had children, but like this feeling that I have for her, it's like when people talk about how they feel about their kids, it's like I imagine, like, this is the closest thing I felt to that feeling of a surprise. And,
Got
oh
nothing.
my gosh, I love that dog.
Understood.
April just got a dog.
No, what did you got?
A poodle. Yeah, poodle. Really cute. I got a picture of it.
Miniature, standard?
She's a standard, but she'll be smaller
Yeah.
on the small side.
Is it pure poodle or mixed?
No, pure poodle.
Okay, this is when Grandma got home today. She called from her fur gram.
Get my pages straight here.
Look how excited they were to see Grandma.
Of course.
Vicious
Have you seen this, April? Look how excited. Okay, this is when Grandma got home today.
Oh yeah, they both do that.
But then look at them.
Yeah, Molly.
Bill's mom would come to the house, Uma was right there.
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah.
pizza.
Yeah.
Grandma always comes with treats.
I know, or like Grandma Donna was always like, don't get a dog, don't get a dog, I don't wanna take care of it. She cooks like her dinner. She cooks her dinner.
Instead of her wrap.
Does she cook a little finger too? No, they should cook pipe for dinner, absolutely. So I was gonna go to the store.
All right. We will move on to executive session. I will make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter, and I ask that I have that Matt Perry stay in the meeting, or at least part of the meeting, executive session. there a second to that?
I will second that.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.